Have you ever found yourself standing by a window while everyone else rushes inside to escape the rain? Maybe you pause your day just to listen to raindrops tapping against the glass. Maybe rainy mornings make you feel strangely calm, while bright, cloudless days sometimes leave you restless. To other people, it might seem like you simply enjoy gloomy weather. But what if your love for rain isn't really about the weather at all? What if your mind has quietly associated rain with something much deeper? Something that feels like safety, peace, or even permission to simply exist. And if you've ever caught yourself doing this, let me know in the comments. You're probably not alone. This is Psychology Streamlined, where we untangle the hidden patterns of the human mind. If these kinds of conversations help you see yourself a little more clearly, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it too. And if today's topic feels familiar, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. The first thing to understand is that you're not strange for loving the rain. You're not negative. You're not secretly unhappy. And you're certainly not broken. The human brain is constantly looking for environments that help it feel regulated, protected, and emotionally balanced. Sometimes those environments aren't people or places. Sometimes they're sounds, smells, or weather. What feels comforting to one person may feel overwhelming to another, because every mind learns safety in its own unique way. For many people, rain becomes one of those quiet signals that tells the nervous system, you can slow down now. One reason this happens begins long before we consciously notice it. Think about what rainy days usually look like. Plans get canceled. Streets become quieter. Conversations soften. The world seems to move at a different pace. Without realizing it, your brain notices that the usual pressure eases for a moment. You don't have to rush quite as much. You don't have to keep up quite as much. The world almost gives everyone permission to pause. Psychologically, our minds are always searching for environments that reduce overstimulation. Modern life constantly asks us to process notifications, conversations, expectations, decisions, and endless movement. Rain naturally filters much of that away. The outside world becomes quieter, less demanding, almost wrapped in a gentle blanket of sound. It's why someone may find themselves making tea, reading a book, or simply staring outside during a storm without feeling guilty about doing nothing productive. Rain isn't creating peace. It's revealing how desperately the mind has been looking for it. Another reason people love rain has to do with predictability. Life often feels uncertain. Relationships change. Careers shift. People surprise us. Emotions arrive without warning. But rain has its own rhythm. Drop after drop. Steady. Repetitive. Almost hypnotic. The brain finds comfort in predictable patterns because predictability lowers uncertainty. This is why many people sleep better during rainstorms. The sound acts almost like emotional white noise, gently occupying the parts of the brain that would otherwise wander into anxious thoughts. Imagine sitting inside while rain falls outside. Nothing is asking anything from you. Nothing needs to be solved immediately. For a little while, the world feels contained. That feeling isn't childish. It's deeply human. For some people, rain also carries memories they don't immediately recognize. Our brains store experiences together with emotions. Maybe childhood afternoons meant staying home with family while rain tapped against the roof. Maybe someone remembers watching movies beneath a blanket. Maybe school was canceled. Maybe grandparents made warm food whenever storms arrived. Years later, those memories may not appear consciously. But the feeling remains. The smell of wet pavement. The cool air. The distant thunder. Suddenly the nervous system whispers, I've been here before. Even if you can't explain why. This isn't simply nostalgia. It's emotional memory quietly resurfacing through the senses. But here's the part nobody tells you. Sometimes people who love rain aren't escaping sadness. They're escaping emotional noise. If psychology like this helps you understand yourself a little better, subscribe to Psychology Streamlined. There's always more beneath the surface. This is where things become surprisingly beautiful. Rain reduces visual stimulation. Colors soften. Crowds disappear. The horizon becomes blurred. Instead of dozens of things demanding your attention, your mind receives fewer signals. For brains that spend much of the day scanning for problems, anticipating conversations, or carrying invisible emotional weight, that reduction can feel almost like taking off a heavy backpack. It's similar to walking into a familiar room after spending hours in a loud city. Nothing has changed about who you are. Only the amount your brain has to carry. Sometimes what we call loving rain is actually loving relief. There's another psychological layer that often goes unnoticed. Rain creates emotional privacy. Notice how differently people behave during storms. Umbrellas go up. Heads tilt downward. Windows fog. Everyone seems wrapped inside their own small world. For someone who often feels watched, evaluated, or expected to perform, rain can create a comforting sense of invisibility. The outside world becomes softer, less exposed, less demanding. You can simply exist without feeling like you're constantly being observed. That sense of privacy becomes emotionally protective. Not because you're hiding, because your identity gets a brief moment of rest. As we grow older, this relationship with rain often changes. As children, rain might have meant puddles, adventure, or unexpected days off. As teenagers, it may have mirrored emotions that felt too complicated to explain. Songs somehow sounded different. Long walks felt more meaningful. The weather seemed to understand feelings that words couldn't. Then adulthood arrives. Responsibilities multiply. Schedules tighten. Every hour belongs to someone else. Rain begins to represent something entirely different. Not excitement. Permission. Permission to stay inside. Permission to slow down. Permission to postpone the endless race for just a little while. The behavior hasn't disappeared. Its meaning has evolved. The brain keeps searching for the same emotional need, even as life changes around it. Perhaps that's why so many adults quietly smile when they wake up to gray skies. It's not because they want less sunshine. It's because, for one day, the world seems to ask a little less from them. At its deepest level, loving rain is often about emotional regulation. The human mind constantly searches for anchors during uncertainty. Some people find that anchor in routines. Some find it in familiar voices. Some find it in music. Others find it in the sound of rain. Like an old friend who never interrupts. Like a blanket that asks nothing in return. Like coming home after carrying invisible weight all day. The steady rhythm helps organize thoughts that previously felt scattered. The cool atmosphere slows emotional urgency. The familiar sound gently reminds the nervous system that not every moment requires action. Even chaos becomes strangely predictable. And predictability feels safe. Safety allows emotions to settle without forcing them away. That may be why people often think more clearly while watching rain. Or feel emotions more honestly. Or finally notice feelings they've been too busy to hear. Rain doesn't create those emotions. It simply quiets everything else enough for them to become visible. I'm curious, when did you first notice this pattern in yourself? Sometimes naming it changes how we carry it. Maybe you've always loved rainy afternoons without ever questioning why. Maybe you felt embarrassed when people called you gloomy for preferring cloudy skies. Maybe you've wondered why storms make you feel peaceful instead of afraid. The truth is, the weather itself is only part of the story. The deeper story is about what your mind has learned to associate with that weather. These aren't signs of weakness. They're reminders that every human brain develops its own language of comfort. Some people hear it in laughter. Some hear it in silence. And some hear it in the soft rhythm of rain against the window. There's something deeply comforting about realizing that a preference doesn't always need to be explained away. Sometimes the things we're naturally drawn toward become small reflections of how our minds learned to feel secure in a world that often moves too fast. Loving the rain doesn't mean you're avoiding life. It may simply mean your inner world recognizes something familiar in moments when everything outside slows down. So if you've ever felt understood by a gray sky, comforted by distant thunder, or unexpectedly peaceful while the rain quietly fell outside your window, maybe there was never anything unusual about you at all. Maybe your mind was simply recognizing a place where it could finally exhale. And sometimes, that's all being human really is. And if this gave language to something you felt for a long time, stay here with us at Psychology Streamlined. There's always more to understand.